I will just quickly go through these ETF sheets that I want to share. I know that there are some people, including those in the 1M65 group, right? They have been hearing Mr. Lu say that, okay, you can buy S&P 500 and just S&P 500, right? No need to invest. Don't stock pick. I think that's his message. But many people, they actually don't know which ETF to buy. So actually, I just prepared these one-page things. I will just quickly go through that, and then I will share the spreadsheet. So I think in general, when it comes to ETF, right, there's some echo. Can you please unmute? Yeah. So in terms of ETF, I think these are the key factors that you should pay attention to. I will just quickly go through each of them now. The first one is, of course, the index, because each ETF, they will, except for those active ETF where the decision is all based on the manager alone, right? But for a passive ETF, they will have an index. So, you just read the index name, you have an idea on what was the strategy. So that's one. And then, based on the index, you will know whether they are invest in specific geography. For example, like S&P 500, only 500 companies in US. If you invest in MSCI World, that's like the entire global developed market. And then if it is emerging market, that's emerging markets, right? So you need to understand, look at the index first now. And then aside from that, there will be some index that will specialize into certain strategy. For example, there are passive ETF that invest in value stocks. So they will do some ranking in terms of their P&E, price to book, and so on, right? And then they will invest in those companies that looks cheap, or even some focus on momentum and so on. So those are also, there are such ETF around. And then lastly, there are some ETF that is specific to certain sector. For example, those who want to invest in semiconductor, but they don't know which companies to pick, right? They can always go for this sector ETF. But here, I will just mostly focus on the broad-based ETF, meaning that those invest in certain geography, but they invest in every sectors and just according to the market cap. I think that's usually the case. So that's number one, look at the index. The second one is looking at the domicile. So I think this one, mainly there are two. One is for those like US listed stocks, and the other one is actually this is not UK domicile. There's a typo here. It should be Ireland Domicile ETF. Usually they are listed on UK London Stock Exchange. So the reason why some prefer to invest in Ireland Domicile ETF is because the withholding tax is much lower. It is at 15% instead of 30%. So if you invest in, let's say, SPY, which is listed in US, right, for all the dividends that is declared, you actually have to pay 30% withholding tax now. So you don't have to declare that. I think the brokers will just keep the 30% and they will pay to the US government. The remaining 70%, it will be paid out to you. So that is the case if you invest in US stocks. Then the rest, the next one will be like liquidity, right? For example, like one of the S&P 500 index is the S27. So that one is listed on Singapore Stock Exchange. But one main criticism is that the S27 ETF is very illiquid now. So if you look at the trading volume on the Friday, right, which is like 2 days ago, there's only like 123 shares that has been traded on that day. So you need to be careful for those ETF that is very illiquid, because you must use a limit order if you buy such an illiquid instrument. It could be shares or it could be ETF, right? If it is very illiquid and the bid-ask spread is very wide, right, then you have to place limit order. If you place a market order, right, sometimes the spread is so high that you actually overpaid for the price now. So you need to be careful on that. But whereas, let's say if you invest in US listed ETF, for example, like those SPY, VOO, because it's very, very liquid and the trading volume is so high, right, actually, if you place a market order, it doesn't really matter because the bid-ask spread is very thin. So I think that's the advantage. If you are someone who, let's say you do your manual DCA every month, what you want to do is just like beginning of the month, you just want to log into your brokerage account and then just place a buy order, right? And you want to make sure that it will be executed, right? You can place a market order, but make sure that you invest in those very liquid ETF now. Then the next one will be the price per share. I know some new investor, they want to do DCA, but they don't have, let's say, like $1,000 or $2,000 to DCA every month, right? They can only buy, let's say, like $200. So if the ETF price is more expensive than $200, let's say it's at $400 or $500, right? They can't buy it every month. So that will be a problem, right? So two ways to do that is, number one is that you can, instead of DCA every month, you can actually do it like every 2 months or every 3 months. So you can skip that. For example, like January, March, May, July, you buy every 2 months or buy every 3 months to achieve the DCA. You don't have to strictly follow the every month kind of approach, right? That's one way to do it. Another way is that you can buy into like US listed ETF because that will actually if the broker allow you for fractional shares, right, you can actually buy in fractional. So I think that's quite helpful as well. So these are consideration as well. And lastly, I think is the fee. I know there are people who comparing the fee, right? For example, should you buy do passive investing using Endowus, or should you actually do your DCA yourself? I think you need to pay attention to the fee, because even if the fee is, let's say, like 0.7, 0.9%, right? I think this is can make a big difference if you compound it over time and your portfolio become very big. So I think definitely pay attention to the fee. I think these are the main considerations. And I think this one, I'll just quickly go through the list of ETF that I have compiled here. I think I will just share the spreadsheet so you don't have to do your screenshot here. Just ask, you can ask in the Telegram group, right? I'll just provide the link to this spreadsheet here. So I've compiled some information. For example, you see their AUM, when is their inception, and then what's the expense ratio, and then the fact sheet is all here. I think this is all quite helpful for those who are like looking to compare like which ETF they should look for. I think just to summarize, although we have a long list here, right? I think just to keep it simple, right? I think CSPX, this is the one to go for those who want to adopt like a buy and hold approach. And because of the 15% withholding tax saving, right? I think CSPX is the one to go. This is, I mean, over a long period of time, you can likely save quite a fair bit of fees by using the CSPX. If this $450 is a problem for you, then I think VUSD is also good. I think these two are the best. For me personally, I have CSPX. And then for those who want to buy into others, for example, like between, let's say for NASDAQ, right? Let's say in terms of difference in the withholding tax, I think not much difference, because QQQ, they don't pay much withholding. They don't pay much dividends. So the 15% of the withholding tax actually don't have a huge difference. But the main difference is that if you buy into, like, for example, this CNDX, right, which is a UCITS funds, right, actually they are not subject to the inheritance tax. So for example, let's say touchwood, right, if you pass away, I mean, if the asset is in US, then it is subject to the inheritance tax. So that one could be a huge numbers. So I think that if that's a concern for you, then you can go for CNDX. But if not, I think QQQ is much better in terms of the trading volume. Like you can see the trading volume is quite a huge difference, right? So if you place an order on CNDX, I would say remember to place a limit order. Then the rest, I think, is really optional, because, you know, for some people, they prefer a VWRA just to have allocation to every countries. I think that's fine as well. And if you want to invest globally and you don't have a brokerage to access to those listed on London Stock Exchange, then the equivalent one should be the VT ETF. I think this one also entire world. So you have, like, you know, 9,000 holdings here. So almost every companies you will have exposure to. I think this is just a quick summary for those who are interested to look at which ETF to invest.